Coming up on today's show, we're going to get into the latest coming out of OTAs as the Browns broke broke OTAs, we'll say, today. We got our first kind of a look at the 2024 Cleveland Browns. I do want to start off by just getting to some quick news, though, before we get into all that good stuff. The Browns did make a signing. Wide receiver Matt Landers signed on the first day of OTAs. I remember Austin Watkins was signed the day before training camp started, and he was the belle of the ball, the preseason prince last year. So you can never rule the 90th man on the roster out, but he was a UDFA last year out of Arkansas. He played at 3 different colleges, went from Georgia to Kent State and then to Arkansas. So if you're like, where do I know this name? Like, that's Maction on Wednesday night for you right there 2-3 years ago. Last season, he was on the Seahawks and Panthers practice squad, and he joins, obviously, a very competitive, like every single room in the NFL for that matter, wide receiver room for Cleveland, where, listen, I'm not going to try to dog on the guy, but it's going to be an uphill battle for Matt Landers to find a roster spot. I think finding a practice squad spot for him would be a win in its own. But as we get more updates throughout OTAs, whether it's signings, releases, they moved on from the quarterback, Jacob Sermon, and they brought back a kicker, for example. We'll keep you updated here, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get to some injury updates from OTAs, where we get some, progress reports on guys like Watson and Chubb. In fact, it's a long list of players returning from injuries that ended their 2023 season. Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Nick Chubb, your 3 top tackles. Maurice Hurst. I'll also kind of toss in Okoronkwo. Remember, he dealt with a pec injury, but he played through it towards the end of the year. He played in the playoff game, but he's coming back. Grant Delpit. Remember, he changed his jersey number. He is number 9. So when you see the highlights come out from OTAs and minicamp and training camp, just keep that in the back of your head. Juan Thornhill and Rodney McLeod. So let's go in kind of an order that I deem from most important to, kind of least important. And that's, of course, going to start with the quarterback, Deshaun Watson, who was throwing today, which is Tuesday at OTAs. However, his plan has him with some scheduled days off. So he is not throwing tomorrow, Wednesday, and that day is open to the media. So we're going to have a lot of boots on the ground reporters tomorrow, Wednesday, but they're not going to see number 4. However, all the reports and all the insider info coming out from Berea is Watson is throwing with his normal velocity and range. The team Instagram account put out some little short clips of him throwing. Looks pretty good to me. I mean, there's no defenders, there's no pads, there's no pass rush. It's just him throwing the pigskin in the backyard, essentially. But you'd rather have him throw it looking good in that spot than not. So he will likely ramp up his throwing, though, throughout OTAs and into minicamp. And there is a 100% belief that he is on track to start week 1 at home against the Cowboys. The bottom line is the Spark Notes, as you walk to class and you Spark Note the chapter of the book you didn't read like I did, Deshaun Watson is on pace to be ready for week 1, and he is on schedule in his recovery. So that is the great news. He's got velocity. He's got the range. Everything is going smoothly in his recovery. That is everything we're being told. So unless everything's a lie, there is good news coming out of the Deshaun Watson injury recovery, because keep in mind, a lot of times we like to think that when players enter the offseason, they just magically get healthy like it's a video game and their health just goes right up to 100%. No, when you break a bone in your shoulder in November, your body doesn't know, OTA start in May? We got to get this shit going. No, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that. But for Watson, it looks like he is ready to roll, and this is just a plan to slowly increment his pace and his ramping up process so they don't overdo it in May, because who cares about football in May? We only care about football in September. DTR, the other quarterback who was injured last year, remember, he suffered a hip injury late in the season. I think it was in the Bears game, if I remember correctly. Unlikely to be fully cleared during OTAs, but the goal for him is to be ready for training camp. So with Watson kind of taking a day on, then a day off, then a day on, and DTR still working through the hip injury, expect to see a lot of Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley. Those are going to be the quarterbacks that are really manning all the 7-on-7 drills. OTAs, there's no pads. There's no contact. So you're going to see a lot of clips of Winston and Huntley leading the charge from the quarterback spot. Nick Chubb now. Let's talk about 24. So not expected to participate in team drills at OTAs or minicamp, according to Mary Kay Cabot. She also mentioned that Chubb could be bouncing in between his hometown in Georgia. He likes to work out at his old high school in Georgia, and then, of course, in Berea at the team facility. So there may be some moments where he's off on the side working by himself or working inside with the trainers, but there is no expectation or belief that Nick Chubb will be at 100% participation level throughout OTAs and into minicamp as well, which that's fine with me. Again, there's a long way to go until the season breaks ground, but the word on the street is Chubb looks good. Just that. I'm not saying Nick Chubb is going to be 100% for week one and ready to roll, but the general consensus is Nick Chubb is making good progress, and there hasn't been major setbacks. He began running at the beginning of April, give or take a week or so. So here we are in the middle of May, and I'll leave it at that. Nick Chubb looks good. Now, will Nick Chubb start week one? Give me a yes or give me a no. As awesome as that would be, I feel like that might be biting off more than the Browns and Nick Chubb can chew. So I think we might see Nick Chubb start the season on the PUP list, maybe even IR, depending on how long they think he could be out for. And we'll see him maybe towards October compared to the start of September. But believe me, I would love to be wrong on that. Let's move on to the offensive tackles now. We'll just kind of go in order by position group here, where the Browns have 3 offensive tackles all coming back from knee surgeries. You've got DeJuan Jones and Jed Wills coming back from MCL injuries, and then Jack Conklin coming back from a torn ACL and MCL. So DeJuan Jones and Jed Wills, they will both participate in OTAs. Sounds like they're going to be at a full level of participation as well. But like a lot of times when you get guys coming back from injuries, this very well could be a day-by-day case where they're ready to roll the first day, and then they kind of get a rest day. Plus, there's lots of rest in between the OTA session. Jack Conklin, on the other hand, don't expect to see him or number 78 around the cameras during OTAs or mandatory minicamp in June. The belief is that Conklin will be returning in training camp. Now, he suffered an injury earlier than Wills and Jones did, but he also suffered a much more severe injury, and also not the first time he suffered an injury to his knee. So don't hold your breath on Conklin returning for OTAs. However, it looks like Jed Wills and DeJuan Jones will be back and be participating throughout OTAs and into minicamp, and that's awesome to see, right? You can look at the Browns' offensive line depth chart here to refresh your memory, and this was a subject that kept a lot of fans up at night. Like, the Browns have 3 tackles. What are they going to do? Who are they going to start? Who are they going to bench? Who are they going to cut? Who are they going to trade? The reality is we're starting to see why Andrew Berry never even kicked the can, it looks like, on moving on from trading an offensive tackle. It's such a valuable position. I mean, just ask yourself, what positions go top 10 in the draft more often than not? Quarterbacks, offensive tackles, pass rushers, wide receivers, and cornerbacks. Those 5 positions are cornerstone pieces. And the Browns learned last year what happens if you run through all of your top guys at one of those spots. You get the James Hudson and Garyon Christian show. That's not a great show. Sorry, guys. So, yeah, the Browns, they're not interested in moving on from one of their top 3 tackles. They're all coming back from knee surgeries. They're not all on the exact same timeline. So one guy may be behind or ahead of the other, so it can't hurt to have some good depth along the way. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, if you want to get yourself an awesome Cleveland Browns USA themed t-shirt, go to chatsports.com/CLEUSA. I put that link in the comments and description. Not too late to get yourself a brand new Browns USA themed t-shirt for Memorial Day weekend, the 4th of July, or if you plan on just, being outside, barbecuing at the lake, at the beach, and you want to rep your favorite country and your favorite team at the same time, then go ahead and get yourself a Browns USA themed shirt today. Let's switch gears to the defensive line now. Maurice Hurst expected to participate and return from his torn pec he suffered during OTAs. Hurst and Obo Okoronkwo, both guys coming back from similar-ish injuries, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And both guys expected to be ready to roll for OTAs and minicamp. You can look at the Browns' defensive line, similar to the offensive line, just to refresh your memory for what Cleveland is working with going into training camp. But Maurice Hurst, I'm sure there'll be some, patience and not wanting to push the envelope. So you'll get some more glimpses at the Browns' second-round draft pick, Mike Hall, out of Ohio State. Mike Hall is definitely a storyline to watch for during OTAs because he's one of the younger guys, of course, not even 21 years old. I think he's turning 21 soon. But anywho, Hall, he was really cool and really fun to watch during rookie minicamp. Showed off his explosiveness and his great first step and whatnot. So we're going to get some nice Mike Hall highlights. But ultimately, when it comes to the offense and the defensive line, the trenches in general, when there's no pads on, you really can't get a fair assessment or grade on any player. So when that's the case, the guys that are more athletic than others tend to stand out a little bit more, a.k.a. Mike Hall. Some other guys I want to run through really quickly. Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, Rodney McLeod. Your top three safeties last year who all either spent time on IR or missed a lot of time. They are all back from their respective injuries. They are expected to be good to go for OTAs and into minicamp. I just caution you, if one of the guys we talk about today has some kind of flare-up, don't be alarmed. That's very common, and you just kind of rest it, and you wait till training camp because there's no sense in pushing one of your starters this early in the year. So now the goal is everyone just stay healthy. Easier said than done, but just stay healthy. I mean, that's it. There's really no other way around it. That is going to be the only thing that I think could be the demise of the 2024 Cleveland Browns. They flew close to the sun last year with all the injuries, and they were able to persevere and start 5 different quarterbacks and win 11 games. But I don't want to repeat that. So just stay healthy. Now, who are you most excited to see return from injury? Let me know in the comment section below. Could be Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, one of the offensive tackles, one of the safeties we just looked at. Give me your response down below in the comment section. I'll be looking. For me, I'll go with Nick Chubb, right? Nick Chubb, the heart and soul of this team in a lot of ways. I mean, one of the longest tenured players on this team after, Joel Petonio, Myles Garrett, David Njoku. Chubb back in 2018, the second-round pick. You look around him, all of a sudden he's one of the kind of older guys on the roster, or the more longer tenured players on the roster. And everything he's done for the city of Cleveland, this team, the leader he is, everyone's rooting for Nick Chubb. So, yeah, I'll be a sucker, and I'll go with Nick Chubb, my favorite player, on his road to recovery. And I can't wait for him to kick rehab's ass even more. All right, we got Trizzy Trace on the 1s and 2s today. Mr. Trace, which card would you like to select for our pick card to end the show?
I'm feeling the 7 of diamonds today.
Drop like half the cards. Okay, you said 7 of diamonds?
7 of diamonds.
All right.
Locking it in.
Give it 2 more cuts.
Get your comments in, too.
Get your predictions in. Get in the chat right now. Get in the comments.
Tie Man going 8 of clubs. Levi, 3 of clubs. Ken G, ace of spades.
I'm going to go ace of hearts.
I like it.
9 of clubs. 9 of clubs.
Not going to lie, you had me.
9 of clubs. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, leave us a like, a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It does a lot to help grow the channel. So really appreciate all of you that are frequent flyers here at the Cleveland Browns Report.